Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Kenton County Fiscal Court meeting for June 22nd, 2025. Please stand for the invocation and pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for everything in our community and our families that we forget to say thank you for especially. We thank you for the great country we live in, the great community we live in, and our family and friends. We ask you to be with us and be with all those who are protecting our freedoms, both domestically and internationally. And we ask you also especially for those who are serving in every way, police, fire, EMS, and those who are serving our community as teachers and nurses, doctors, those who forget to be thanked, and we do appreciate them this evening. We ask that you are with us this evening, that as we work on behalf of the citizens of Kenton County, that everything we say is pleasing to your will. In your name, Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we are going to have, by the way, I'm glad you all are here. It's nice to see people in the fiscal court meetings, by the way, so you're always welcome to come. We have a quick normal agenda, and then we'll jump to the site readiness this evening. So we'll take a few moments to go through the normal items, but this is a normal fiscal court meeting. Approval of the minutes is on our agenda for the July 8th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We do have on the agenda the citizens address portion, which is for that which has not affected the site readiness. We're going to do that after our presentations so that everybody can have a chance to comment and listen. I think we might have a couple of people who've asked to address the court and also maybe regarding another issue, but we'll verify that. So I think Matthew on Eads has asked to address the court. Is that site readiness or another topic? Okay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Matthew Code on Eads Road. So my first comments tonight are on tonight's claims list. I'd like to direct the court's attention to page 5 of the claims list, wherein $6,000 is directed to Southwestern Kenton County Readiness Catalytic Fund. Also on page 6, we see $100,000 directed to BNKY. Now, supposedly we're here tonight for a discussion of something that is decades away, something that is so far down the road that we don't need to worry about it. But on the same night, that very same night, we're seeing money dedicated to the project we all oppose. The fact that citizens don't want this type of development is obvious. It should be obvious based on over 90% of respondents to the 2016 survey agreeing with the statement, it is important to maintain the rural character of South Kenton County. It should have been obvious when over 2,900 people signed a petition opposing this development. It should have been obvious when we filled this room back in February for the Planning Commission meeting. It should have been obvious at Piner. It should have been obvious at Simon Kenton. It should have been obvious when residents spoke about this at 9 fiscal court meetings. Yet here we are tonight at fiscal court meeting number 10, making the same statements, fighting against the same destruction of Southern Kenton County. Now, evidently, the court is convinced that tonight we're going to hear from so-called subject matter professionals.
And Matthew, if this is site readiness, we're going to cover that later. But if you
It's related to the claims list, which comes before site readiness.
You've done that already, but go ahead. Just wrap it up.
I'm continuing on why the claims list is a problem.
I got you. Go ahead and wrap it up, please.
So you all are convinced that we're going to change our minds tonight hearing from these so-called experts. Well, I'm confident that after the presentations, you're once again going to see a parade of thoughtful, dedicated citizens coming to this podium and saying the same thing. Not here, not ever. With that in mind, the court should take immediate action to halt the spending in tonight's claims list and realign your spending with the wishes of the voters.
Okay. Thanks, Matthew. Suzanne, Lise? Yeah. We are going to, one note, I'm going to comment on this later again, but I would ask actually, no laughing or clapping, either one, which people are making. That's not how we do fiscal court meetings, so I would ask you to be respectful for that. We do ask Suzanne, you've asked to address the court. And before you get over there, Suzanne, is it site readiness or what topic is that this evening?
Land use and survey.
Okay.
It's proceeding.
That's fair. Thanks.
You're welcome.
we are. We'll be good.
Sorry, but my printer is on the fritz, so I'm going to have to use the computer. My name is Suzanne Parker Lease. Most people up there know me.
Of course, yeah.
15172 Dixie Highway, Crittenden, Kentucky, on the west side of US 25. And I am going to address the court, the fiscal court, as soon as I can get my, there we are. Okay. I apologize, but I'm going to have to look down. I can't look up. Okay.
Sure, take your time.
Okay,
You're good.
although I know the site readiness is on the agenda, I want to step back a little bit to look at two elements that are fundamental to those industrial plans. And these are the survey and the land use approval. We used to call it Direction 2030. It has other names, but that's what I'm talking about. This was sent, the survey, first the survey. This was sent only to residents in the rural sub-area geography defined under the working definitions of 2020. Those in ag zones outside that area were not surveyed, as some people here know that. They didn't get the survey. And for context, those people in SRI Area 1 were not surveyed. Those in Focus Area 2 were surveyed, just to give you perspective. And in the sub-rural areas, some industrial zones already existed. They were grandfathered in, and these are primarily along US 25, butting up against the Boone County Walton Industrial Park area, kind of coming down to about York Road for those people that are not familiar with the geography. So over the past 40 years, the industry on this area has included auto graveyards, a livestock auction house, a meat processing plant, landscaping company, auto repair shops with used cars in lots, a metal recycling plant, a bank, and then most recently that many of us might remember, there's an empty warehouse, there's a construction company, and then in the back there's a solar farm that Duke runs. I just lost my, bear with me, I just lost it. All right. Back to the 2016 survey. There's only one question about industry. The question generally asked, if there were industry, what types of industry would be most compatible? So the results could inform decisions on the type of industry PDS might recommend on the remaining land in these already grandfathered industrial zone. The results could not be used to determine if residents wanted more industry or any industry at all. It was not asked. However, those results are being used by the county to imply community support for land use and SRI in community meetings and in public materials on the website. So I respectfully ask that county officials either clearly put the context in or remove the references totally from the public materials. And what is at stake? Well, it may not be much, it's just the truth and the trust of your constituents.
And Suzanne, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to stop there. We're trying to keep everything to 2 minutes and get on with the meeting if you don't mind. So we're going to, if you could just wrap up your last sentence, please.
Okay. If you, let me just get to the end. These, how would, if the survey, everybody knows the question, so if these simple data points are being misused, how should residents think about other data points being offered? So the last point I want to make is nobody likes big surprises. You all are upset, unhappy, and being indirect. We're upset, we're unhappy, and we're very mistrustful and suspicious. So we need to get past that and go back and revisit land use in our next update, which is this year, if I'm not mistaken, because we're in 2025. So with that request, I end my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Okay, moving on to our general business, we have our request for approval of pay application number 16 for Dugan & Myers for the garage.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Any other question or comment? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have our claims list for July 22nd. Kurt?
Claims list has been sent out over the last week. Any questions? Motion to approve.
Yeah, we don't.
Second. Thank you.
Thank you. Bills to be paid. Resolution 25-01L. Kurt? Couple of budget adjustments.
There were no budget adjustments on.
Oh, we're good.
Sorry about that.
No, good. So we have our claims list, we have our consent agenda, we have a couple of items, if anybody would address anything separately or have any questions on them for the consent agenda.
Can we go back to the Kenton County Library?
Sure.
What was that, how much was that bid?
So any bid that is over $1 million that from the library has to come to the fiscal court. So basically their entire, that renovation project, you know, they obviously, it's their funds in there, they have cash in the bank.
So it's just us, procedure.
Put a blessing on it, yeah, and
Pass-through.
it's good. They've done a good job with that.
That's not gonna cost us any money, right?
That's correct, that's right.
Okay.
Any other question or comment on the consent agenda?
That's kind of funny. I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Executive Order 25-83, approving the resignation of Brian Blackburn as a public service tech in Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Order 25-84, approving the appointment of Sam Murray as a public service tech in Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And finally, Executive Order 25-85, approving the appointment of Michael Musk as a deputy coroner for the coroner's office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
We had one more.
Pardon?
Fire district.
Fire district.
Oh,
Fire
on the other side. There we
Minor.
go.
Pioneer Fire District.
2586.
Oh, very good. I'm sorry. 25-86, approving the appointment of Janice Friedman to the Pioneer Fire District.
So,
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our public hearing. Okay, great. So what everybody's here for this evening, I think. So this, couple of comments we're going to make, or I'm going to make this the first as we kick this off. There are a point of public comment that can be made as well after we have some of the presentations. At that time, also the commissioners will be able to make a comment. So bear with me on a few points I want to make to go through here first before we kick this off. First is I really do appreciate, I mean that sincerely, you guys, Suzanne made a comment at a public meeting a couple weeks back, is that, you know, being involved and aware, whether it be going to planning commission meetings, doing volunteer stuff as committees, that's really good stuff. And so, but it takes time. And many of you in the room do that. Some of you do less than others. You should all be commended for those who put hours through the years into committees that can really just be aware of stuff. It's tough. As great as communication is today, websites, you know, sometimes social media, mostly terrible, but it is a tool. And it's hard to be aware. So if you're involved, you can be aware. So I encourage you to do that. The goal of this session, by the way, the next period of time, is really to do one main thing. And a couple of you in the room had asked, hey, we want the county to answer questions. And we're not going to get into a back and forth banter of questions, but because of questions that had been asked after our last couple of public sessions, we went through those and wanted to address them, which is why we've actually asked some experts to be in front of us this evening to both answer them, so it's not just the commissioners or myself answering them. So it is something that it is experts, and I know that comments made about kind of minimizing their expertise, but trust me, the three people in front of me have their own opinions, and they have their data, they have their experience, and they bring that to the table this evening to answer some of the questions. But it's also, hopefully they may or may not totally answer every question, but the goal is to try and clarify some things if there's an opportunity for it. We did review the questions and comments, and we have the experts this evening. So Lee Kroom from BNKY, Sharmali Reddy from PDS, and Spencer Stork, who is our county engineer and who does work for works for the county directly. And really, our goal is to address the challenges and opportunities and we will always look at that. So this whole topic, by the way, there is no action that's really been taken other than to study and learn. And so for those who've said I'm against something or for something, really the whole idea of this effort over the past, which really goes back years, is to learn. and to listen, and whether we disagree or I disagree with somebody or agree with somebody in the community, we do listen and learn, and we just have to move forward, take action, and sometimes not take action, but that's part of the game. So acknowledging I want to point out something too, is that I want to acknowledge some of the feelings, and again, a few of you commented in the past about being upset or worried, especially when it comes to the maps that were presented back at the beginning of the discussion. One of the big things that was, I think, misunderstood is the map was really intended to just share an area of concern or areas of people who we do know are affected by the site Focus Area 1 and Focus Area 2. The nearer you are or in it, the more affected you are. I get that. We get that. But the maps that included subdivisions and smaller lots gets people, I think, a little bit more upset. But there would never be any kind of industrial development where there exists a subdivision like Ayasta or Glenhurst. It doesn't make sense, financially or otherwise. But we don't ever want to make people upset about that and feel unsure about their neighborhood. I've got friends and family who live in those subdivisions, and if you add the sheer dollar amount that it costs to have an acre, what does a quarter acre lot with a house on it today in those neighborhoods cost? Multiply that by 4, and that becomes your per acre cost. That would never be purchased for development, the kind of thing that is in Focus Area 1 or 2. We also want to point out something that maps, whether it be by showing us Focus Area 1 or Focus Area 2 or roads, things of that nature, until it's finally designed of things, those are just ideas to try and get a sense of things. You really can't get down to the property lines and things of that nature, but they just give a sense of things. So it's very normal, by the way, whether this effort and discussion or future roads that might be built in any of the counties. And I know, Matthew, I think you talked about that we would just blow away some of the data points. Well, the data points are not acknowledge it. Whenever a road is built, it's designed on I call it a crayon at first blush, and then further and further design gets into, where things go. But in public meetings, everybody wants to go to that spot and say, well, how am I affected? We get that. But it always needs to be taken with a grain of salt and understood that they're ideas of just getting a general idea of where things would go. But we don't want anybody to be worried or upset. And the biggest topic that came up early, which I think is very unfortunate that some had stoked worry even further, and that is the discussion of eminent domain. The county would never try and take property for by legal force or by, if someone wants to keep their property for as long as they want to do and keep that, they absolutely can and should. That is the way it's always been, and that's the way it always will be. The exception to that is road construction, and the state is able to do that. And any road that would go through most of this area, if not all of this area, would be a state road. State roads can typically use eminent domain, but it's normally 99% of the time is handled by agreement and by market value. That's just the way the thing works. So anybody kind of stoking that fear in someone who has a house and saying, is someone going to make me move? It's not good to do that to other people, I think. And so eminent domain is not something that the county would ever take action with. Moving into the topic of roads in general, we've had a lot of discussions, and there's conversations that have had about how do you get access to Focus Area 1 or Focus Area 2? Or how do you address the issue of tractor trailers that are already driving down roads that you and I both know today were not built for tractor trailers? We always want to have investment. We want to make sure that our roads are built to handle the traffic that is both designed to come down those roads, as well as the stuff that we don't want to have it come down the road. But we have to just deal with those realities every single day. And we're wanting to make sure that we are looking at that and planning for the future. I had a meeting the other day, and someone told us, a tractor trailer is going down Bank Lick. That's horrible. Trucks don't need to be going down there. How do you do that? How do you manage it? How do you make sure that those are addressed? For that matter, Licking Pike in Boone County, and I think a couple of you are Boone County residents that realize that old Lexington Pike is an area that tractor trailers drive down every day. It needs to be rebuilt and expanded, but how do you do that and plan for it long term? Question of timelines, and these guys are going to get into some other questions, but the point about this issue is I talk about timelines. Nothing has been changed, by the way. The most recent change, and the term surprise comes up, was in 2020. August of 2020 is when the land use changed for Focus Area 2. 5 years ago. there are some of you in this room who are part of committees that discuss that as a community for us to try and make sure that if we have industrial development, where would it likely go? And there was committee work, planning commission work, those who've, in fact, I've had individuals who've literally said and supported that discussion 5 years ago have now had their memories go away, and they somehow say, what do you mean land use for industrial in focus area 2? So anybody who talks about and thinks that this court has not been talking about this for at least 5 years is just incorrect. We've been working with both the South Kenton Citizens Group, individual residents, and there's been consensus about how to do that. And I just don't think it's fair to view it as being some kind of a surprise. And the timeline as well looks back all the way to 2006 when Focus Area 1 had the ECP zone really addressed. I'm not great at math, but that's knocking on 20 years ago. This is not new. This is not surprising. This is not something that we do, that there's anything being done today and or proposed to be done. There is no zone change proposed. There is no active effort to put a document together of what might be changed, because the timeline is, we've been very methodical about making sure that we're respectful of getting input. And this is part of that process, by the way, because we believe in sharing, getting feedback and discussion on meaningful, positive, professional input. And the other ways that timelines for affected by the one big thing, and this is very reality of this thing. If somebody has a piece of property, whether it be 5 acres or 200 acres, if they don't ever want to sell it and don't have a willing buyer, they never have to do a darn thing. They leave on that property for as long as they want. And if in Focus Area 1 or Focus Area 2, the majority of people who had a property in that area decided that they didn't want to sell it, that shuts a lot of things down, as it should, because if they don't want to do something with it for a willing buyer, then they have the ability to say no. That's a great thing about the country we live in. They can say no. Topic of planning. We've got options. And I had people joke about this, and we have an option to sit back and let things happen to us, or we can plan ahead. Those are the two options. So we can sit back and let trucks run down our road from Boone County. We can let development come from Boone County that we may or may not like, or we can probably work through it and discuss it. It has options in our future and try and plan for that. We can do either one, but sitting back and letting things happen to us is probably not the right direction. Moving forward just on a couple of data points, then I'll wrap up, and then we can have our presentations, and we'll do some questions from the commissioners and then have public comment. Just for data points, Kenton County, and I would have failed on this acreage number if anybody wants to guess how many Kenton County acres that exist, or how many acres exist in Kenton County. We've got about 102,000 acres in Kenton County. Unincorporated represents about 53,000 of those acres. Currently, with the areas that we've been talking about, especially because of two big things: Expressway and Boone County development to the west, that's in the Focus Area 1, west of Focus Area 1. Those two big factors. That's why we're looking at that area in particular. But this is we're not leaving alone, but 50,000 acres are not even in the discussion of the 53,000. 50,000 acres. So the 3,000 acres in total are parts that we're just discussing here today. So when those who might feel like, oh my gosh, everything in unincorporated, it's not. Let's dive into real quick Focus Area 1. Initially examined as the maps, and these are things that we would have probably done a little bit differently looking at it now, but it is what it is, showed about 2,500 acres and it was about to ensure that we had studied the whole impact of that area. In reality, it's being reduced to about 1,900 acres because that which is already developed, and in reality, there's about 900 acres that are in the ECP zone that is in the non-ag part of Focus Area 1. So 900 acres. So those who might think, well, 2,500 acres. In reality, when you dig down into it, it's about 900 acres, and that, as I pointed out earlier, has been and was zoned that way for almost 20 years. Okay, nothing new. And then we're currently meeting, and as I've shared, we're currently meeting with property owners in that area to understand their future plans. and their desires, their interests, their questions, and that feedback continues and has been very, very informative and very insightful. I mean, some of you might be in the room who are in those meetings and that we've talked to. We really appreciate that feedback and willingness to share your thoughts. Jump into focus area 2. That's about 3,000 acres that we identified in the comprehensive plan for industrial development. Realistically, we anticipate about 1,500 of those acres, so about half, would be developed, could be developed in future or for industrial, likely between the interstate and the railroad. If you look at the maps, it's pretty common sense. But it's very long term. Focus area 1 is long term, and then focus area 2 is very long term, with whatever happens. And the only thing that would happen is if the property owner decided to listen and deal with a prospective buyer. We did pause our efforts, and we clarified that to try and minimize those who might think, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next month or next year? We paused that because we've got all these property owners who we've sent notices out, or letters out in Focus Area 1 asking for their input. And in that process, we just know that that's going to be end of year, into next year, before anybody really with Focus Area 2, we have even time or energy, and depending upon what the feelings of those individuals who have property in the Focus Area 1 might have. Secondarily, we realized, again, the Focus Area 2 is probably looking at least 15 years. And anybody who wants to go back to the development of both roads and things, the Northern Kentucky Industrial Development in Boone County was 25 years in the making plus, as well as some of the roads. You look how long it takes to build a road. 536, for example. People have been talking about that for 40 years. And we had a meeting today, and we're still looking at decades to get to Campbell County. It just takes a long time because it's a lot of money and a lot of effort. So, and then one last note I want to point this out was in 2020 when we did the land use change for Focus Area 2. Part of that effort was to do 3 additional things, which might be glossed over, and that is to focus on river recreation, agricultural and rural conservation, and natural view conservation in the other 50,000 acres of unincorporated Kenton County. And I could list the other items that are being worked on to make sure and offer. We've talked about some of the great education that has been occurred. If people want to put a conservation easement on their property, that can be done today. Typically, individuals don't want to do that because it ties your hands as a property owner. I get that. But those are great things that people can learn about, have options, while the county continues to look at other things that need to be done so that we do protect all the resources that we have with the realities of an infrastructure that already exists, like an expressway and the infrastructure and development to our west. So moving on, what are we going to do? So we are going to have 3 experts take some time and cover the main questions that we have pulled up that we realized we maybe hadn't gotten answered and we want to clarify. So I think we're going to start with Lee Kroom. Did we start with Lee? Okay, we'll start with Lee Kroom from BNKY. So Lee, you've got the mic, and then we'll come after them with public comment and comments there as well. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, members of the Fiscal Court. Thank you for everybody for being here. As mentioned, my name is Lee Kroom. I'm the president and CEO of the BNKY Growth Partnership. I'm going to immediately divert from my prepared comments in a couple of things. Judge, in your invocation tonight, you said thank you a number of times. In our company, we think about gratitude a lot in the work that we get to do. It's our job, it's our career, it's an obligation, it's a responsibility that we get to do this work. I think about all the time. I got into this industry in 2013, and the thing that brought me into it, and I've told the story many times, if you've ever wanted a job and not had a job, if you've ever needed a job and not had a job, if you've ever had a mortgage to pay and a paycheck not coming in, you understand how important jobs are. Jobs feed families. Jobs provide careers. Jobs help us define who we are. Jobs matter a lot. I've been that person in my life. And to get the opportunity to work in this industry where the end result is that people can have jobs where they can live the American dream and they can feed their family, it's something that I feel humbled for every day. And so I thank the court for the opportunity to be here tonight to talk about what we get to do as our careers, but also what is really a bit of a calling for our organization, because we know the end result of the work that we do matters. It changes people's lives. It has effects on people's lives. And so thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm also going to take a moment and just talk about, and this isn't in my prepared comments, BNKY Growth Partnership. Who are we? Where did this name come from, BNKY? We were formerly known as Northern Kentucky Triad. And we went through some processes a couple of years ago, and as we talked about this community, we talked about who do we want to be? What do we want to be? What kind of jobs do we want to have here? How do we want to live? And as we talked about who we want to be as a community, it led us down this path of renaming the company to the BNKY Growth Partnership so that we can engage every day in these types of conversations on who this community wants to be, how we want to grow. So I'm really appreciative of being here. Now I'm going to get back on script for you for just a couple minutes. Our company, the BNKY Growth Partnership, we provide economic development services for Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. In this context, economic development, that can mean a lot of different things. It means helping growing the overall economy of those three counties. A few things that we really believe at BNKY. First, we have a cause that we get up and we talk about and we try to serve every day, and that is we serve Northern Kentucky so that our communities thrive through the creation of good jobs and a growing and diverse economy. I was talking to a colleague in Ohio last week. Their county had one major employer, 900 jobs. They're gone. That county may never recover from the loss of 900 jobs. That factory had been in that county for over 100 years. And so the idea of a growing economy and a diverse economy with different types of jobs is really, really important, I think, to a community. Second, we have a vision, and that vision is to provide opportunity and prosperity for all Northern Kentuckians. Whether you live in the North County or the South County or in between, we want every citizen of this community to have an opportunity to participate in prosperity. So to drive growth, what do? We work with companies that have a choice in where they locate their operations and where they invest. Take a moment and think about companies like Bosch, it's in Boone County, CTI in Covington, Niagara Bottling, just located in Ellesmere, Chick-fil-A in Ellesmere, or Mazak. These types of companies could locate just about anywhere they wanted to go. Hire people, invest, pay taxes. They chose Northern Kentucky because we offer their business an advantage for success. They make decisions on where to locate driven by where they can be most successful and where a community will support them. In exchange for that, we get investment, we get paying of taxes, we get high-wage jobs. We don't typically work with companies like grocery stores, doctors, dentists, and those. We do our work on behalf of those companies so that their clients, they have clients, and their clients have more money to spend. But those companies will typically locate here because we are here and we work here. They make decisions on where to locate based on the population that is here, and especially where populations have good, high-paying jobs. So when you think about the amenities that we enjoy as a community, whether you're going to a show or a Kroger store or a Publix or a CVS, or you're getting health care, they make a choice to be here because we have a good economy and people have good jobs to support their businesses. But we don't typically work with them, we work for them. We began this work in 1987, and since then we have successfully assisted over 800 projects to choose Northern Kentucky, which has led to over $10 billion of investment and nearly 80,000 jobs during that time. Today, we provide several important services. I'm going to talk about two of them. First is the economic growth activities that I mentioned before. How do you get companies to choose, locate Northern Kentucky, invest, pay taxes, and employ our fellow citizens? Second, we provide economic development strategy, which means helping our community understand who do we want to be and the ever-changing needs of our clients, the major companies that make site location decisions, and the changes in the business and economic landscape that is occurring all the time. We do this so that as a community, if we do this right, Northern Kentucky will make good, informed decisions to ideally maintain and elevate our current levels of prosperity. Think about meetings like tonight. This is a part of the strategy work that we do. And I will tell you, in my experience, again, I'm going off script here for you, Judge, in fiscal court. In my experience, communities can have two types of problems. You can have good problems or bad problems. You can have the problems and the friction that comes because you're growing, or you can have the problems and the friction that comes because you're shrinking. Sometimes you don't get to choose. But Judge, you mentioned earlier about planning. Part of the planning is planning to be prosperous so that you don't ever have to deal with the challenges of a community that is losing jobs, losing health care, and those types of things. I'm going to share one last thing before addressing specific topics. We do this work today because we're prosperous, and I generally assume we want to stay as a prosperous community. To do this, our community needs to integrate and adapt some change that occurs in the world and decide how we want to compete with other communities that also want to be prosperous. There are about 400 MSAs in America, and the best of them are competing every day to be prosperous. And we have to make a decision whether we want to compete with them or fall behind. Think of it like this. We do this because the jobs we have and the prosperity we enjoy in Northern Kentucky today, it didn't happen by chance or by luck. Our predecessors, the people that came before us, created these opportunities. And think about key assets. Judge, you talked about a couple of these. The Northern Kentucky Industrial Park, where jobs like Mazak and Bosch are, that was created in the 1960s. The interstate highway system, Judge, you mentioned the interstate highway system, which is a major reason why we're prosperous, was created in the 1950s. CVG, the biggest economic driver in the entire Cincinnati MSA, was created in the 1940s. Our predecessors, they did the hard work of securing these assets for us, and we reap the benefits from them every day. We think it's our obligation to do the same thing for the people that will come behind us, to make sure that they can have the same prosperous life in Northern Kentucky that we get to enjoy today. We inherited those resources from them, and we need to determine what resources we'll pass on to the people that follow us. So Judge, that being said, I'm going to talk about a couple of specific things here. What is the difference, first and foremost, between warehousing and manufacturing? There's a lot of differences there. In economic development, the difference lies in three big things: capital investment, jobs, wages, and typically career opportunities. Traditionally, manufacturers invest heavily in their facilities. Lots of investments in the facilities and what goes in the facilities. If you understand Kentucky, what goes in those facilities is subject to personal property tax. Every dollar that those companies pay in personal property tax is a dollar we don't pay in tax to support the services that we enjoy. Also, manufacturers traditionally pay higher wages, offer greater career growth, and drive greater additional spending in the jobs and community. And what that means is manufacturers buy other things in the communities, whether it's services or repairs and things of that nature, at a greater level than what warehouses would typically do. This is among the reasons that we focus on those businesses in Northern Kentucky. What is the interest Kenton County is getting today from manufacturing companies to locate here? It's high. We get a lot of interest in Northern Kentucky from good quality manufacturing companies. Of 109 projects won in Northern Kentucky in the last 5 years, 51 were in the advanced manufacturing sector. 75% of the leads that we are currently working on inside of the company, BNKY, are manufacturing companies. Our challenge is we don't know what good quality companies are not shopping Northern Kentucky. These companies shop just like we shop. They get on the internet, they look for sites, they look for workforce, they look for resources, just like if we were buying a car and I went on the car dealer website and they didn't have the car that I was looking for, I wouldn't go shop them. These companies are the same way. So we don't know how much we're missing, and a great example of that is you think today, if you're following the news, there's a lot of investment happening in America in the pharma space. a lot of onshoring of drug manufacturing and pharma in America today. We're not seeing enough of that activity in northern Kentucky. So why are those good jobs and that good investment passing us by? It's likely because we don't have the large-scale sites and infrastructure already invested in that they need. So that's a little bit on whether or not companies are choosing to locate here. Why are we targeting manufacturing companies? What is the average income expected? The average wage of a manufacturing worker in northern Kentucky is about $81,000 for a year versus just over $51,000 for someone working in distribution. From 2020 to 2024, capital investment in advanced manufacturing was north of $700 million. And again, keep in mind, that investment, those companies, they pay real and personal property tax on. The property taxes that they pay are property taxes that we don't pay to support the services that we enjoy, like police, fire, water, and things of that nature. And manufacturers typically burden transportation infrastructure less than distribution companies. And then finally, manufacturers, and again, typically, this is not always the case, they have local management and leadership in their plants, which allows them a local say on investment and engagement in the community versus distribution companies. And so we see more investment or even philanthropic investment from those type of companies typically than we would from distribution companies. That's not to say that we don't see the value in distribution companies. I order stuff off Amazon just like everybody else does. And when it's not here in 2 days, I complain like everybody else does. It's just not the work of our organization. The question is, there are several empty warehouses in the area. Why can't manufacturers simply go into those? It's a great question. If you think about it, and if you drive through the community and look at these things, distribution centers are typically very cookie-cutter, generic buildings. They have limited utilities. Oftentimes when they're built, they have limited infrastructure in them. They may have a 4-inch concrete floor, which it will support only a certain amount of weight. They're typically packed very densely on the property. They're trying to maximize the square footage on the property. Manufacturers, on the other hand, typically develop very sophisticated and customized buildings that include features like extra thick floors, higher uses of utilities, so access to utilities, higher ceilings. They might need a tower. They might need a pit or well inside of their buildings that are not conducive to distribution types of buildings. Additionally, I looked at the commercial real estate vacancy recently, and warehouse space is about a 9% vacancy rate across all of northern Kentucky. So there's just not a lot of this, there's less of this space available than what you might readily imagine is available. And oftentimes that space is kind of pieces and parts as opposed to like one whole big building. And then finally, think about things like, think about manufacturers that you see in this community. Drive through the Northern Kentucky Industrial Park. Look at places like Mazak or Florence or Saffron. Look at Kraus Maffei and Camco. These manufacturers, they're making a clear purchasing decision on what they want, and they would typically want to have space around their process so that they're not hemmed in by their neighbors, and so that they're also not disturbing their neighbors. They want to have room so that as they grow, they don't have to buy other facilities. They can grow on the land that they're on, which again is not how distribution centers are built. And just kind of like a really quick example that I love to use, you know, you think about Schwann's. Schwann's makes pizza. You can see them right off the highway there. They make lots and lots of pizzas. They're probably really sensitive to vibrations and smells and interference from other people's processes. They don't want to be tightly wound with other organizations because when they put out a pizza, they want it to taste like their pizza and not somebody else's chemical smells and things of that nature. When we buy their pizza, we probably want it to be that way as well. So then finally, a couple of things, and Judge, you talked a lot about this. What is attractive about this area for Kenton County for manufacturing? There's two key concepts. One is the location of northern Kentucky. We sit within a day's drive about 60% of the U.S. population. I recently met with a German company located here in northern Kentucky. They've been here for 25 years. Their CEO, when they decided to locate in northern Kentucky, bought a house in Kenton County. So for 25 years, he's owned a house in Kenton County. And I asked him, why did you choose northern Kentucky when you opened this facility and came from Germany? And he said, we did our research, and 65% of our customers are within a day's drive of this spot. So being here gives us the greatest ability to service our customers and be successful. And so where we sit in this United States and proximity to Canada and Mexico and different supply chains is a tremendous advantage for high-quality employers like this. And then the last part of the equation is, Judge, not just the location, but it's the flat land and it's the access to that highway we talked about earlier. I'm not going to run through the numbers that you ran through. All of northern Kentucky is just under 400,000 acres. Kenton County is over 100,000 acres. There's a very finite number of acres. I know those acres sit very closely to the people that sit in this room tonight, but that's why we're talking about those acres. They're flat, they're close to the highway, they provide a business advantage to companies that we work with, and there's an advantage for this community to have companies like that here employing and paying taxes. Judge, with that, I'll pause and be happy to answer any questions that the fiscal court may have.
Great. We are going to do that, by the way, so any commissioner would like any question of Lee, and we'll do that for each of the other presenters as well. Any questions you might have?
You and I had the privilege of visiting R.A. Jones a few months back, and I appreciated that you mentioned visit some of the light manufacturing and advanced manufacturing that already exists in the county. We were standing outside that building realizing that there's trees all around it. It's beautifully manicured. They're putting in a trail around the building so that the community can use it, the employees can use it. Speak to that a little bit. That particular manufacturer has been in a neighbor, there's neighborhoods surrounding it for 120 years. They make high-end machines. Most people would not even realize they're there. What other examples are there besides that one, maybe that we could show folks, encourage them to visit, maybe take the fear out of the concern about scary, stuff blowing into the atmosphere and the old manufacturing look?
Yeah. It's funny, there's a couple of things inside of that question. One is manufacturing today, and people talk about kind of dirty, stinky, smelly manufacturing, and I always encourage them, drive through the Northern Kentucky Industrial Park. Tell me how loud it is. Tell me what you smell. Sometimes you're going to smell pizza from Schwann's. I mentioned them earlier. It's not the manufacturing that we think of from 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's a really different thing. We visited R.A. Jones, and so what R.A. Jones makes, they make packaging equipment. They have been making packaging equipment in this community for over 100 years. They're today owned by an Italian company that has a choice where they invest their dollars to maximize what they're trying to do. And they've continually chosen Northern Kentucky because we have a good quality workforce and they can be prosperous here. You think about what they're making there in their machines. So if you go buy a box of cereal tonight, chances are that cereal, regardless of who the manufacturer is packaged by an R.A. Jones machine. Years in the past, that machine would have been, it had a person stand there feeding cereal boxes into it, or we don't make a lot of cigarettes in America anymore, but cigarette packages or whatever they're packaging into that machine, and then somebody operating the machine and then taking it off. Today, those machines are so highly automated, you've got one person running multiple machines. And so the skill sets that they need in a workforce are incredibly different. They're looking for skill sets like somebody that can program machines, monitor multiple different machines, troubleshoot when something's not working, communicate when they find something that's not working, and help find solutions when those types of things are occurring. So the life of somebody working in a lot of these advanced manufacturing plants is really, really different than what we may envision if you don't get to see this on a daily basis like we do. And again, because these companies are investing heavily in these facilities, they're going to be, we call it stickiness in our industry. They're going to be here because they put a lot of money here and they want to see them be successful, which is why you see them building things like walking parks around their campus because they want to use it as an amenity for their employers. I think they've been in that facility that we saw since the late 1960s, early 70s. just kind of quietly making packaging machines and providing good jobs in our community.
Good. Thanks, Lee. I appreciate that. Sharmila Reddy, Executive Director of PDS. Sharmila, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. My portion of the presentation is going to cover questions around zoning. So let's get right to it. So this is the first question, and I'm going to come back to it, but there's two terms that I'm going to use repeatedly in my presentation, and I know people understand it, but just to make it clear, I'm going to be using future land use, and I'm going to be using the term zoning. And it's important to understand the difference between the two because of where Focus Area 1 stands and where Focus Area 2 stands. So in terms of what future land use is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a recommended use of the land in the future. And it's generally a term that we use a lot in what we call the comprehensive plan. It's sort of the Bible that we use when development comes through. We look at this comprehensive plan, we look at what the future land use is, and we sort of evaluate the proposal based on that future land use. It guides development in the county, and it looks at, you'll see things like residential, commercial, industrial. You'll see a variety of land uses kind of outlined in that comprehensive plan. So for example, if you own property in Focus Area 2, your future land use may be designated as industrial, but your zoning could still be agriculture, which leads me to zoning. Zoning is a more immediate, it's a more immediate action. It's what applies to your land today. So if you go and want to develop your land, if you want to build a house on it, if you want to put industry on it, the first thing we will do is go and look at what the zoning of the property calls for. And if it allows you to put a subdivision on it, then generally you do not have to jump through hoops to get that done. But if it doesn't, there is a whole process behind that, and I'm going to talk about that. So these two terms I'm going to use a lot in my presentation, and it's kind of important that, that we're all on the same page about what these terms mean. So speaking of Focus Area 1, and everybody I think by now knows what these areas are. Focus Area 1 is generally south of Mayher, north of Walt Nicholson, county line to Banklick. And if you look at the future land use map, again, this is land use, future, what should this area develop like? You'll see that there's a part of it that is actually residential. There's about half of it that is industrial. And then we're also showing the land use on the Boone County side, which you can see is all industrial. So what about zoning then? Zoning in Focus Area 1 is very, very reflective of the land use that is recommended. It is the portion that is future land use for residential is zoned agriculture, which in our county, agriculture also allows some level of residential development. The area identified for industrial is mostly zoned industrial, so it's very reflective, and there's a reason for that. We went through a major effort in 2006 to talk to residents in this area, we had a very extensive community engagement process where we worked with the residents, worked with the Corps to get the land changed to industrial for a portion of it, and then of course change the zoning to industrial as well. Focus Area 2 is slightly different. It is not, when we think about planning and zoning, they are not at the same point. They're both in very different points in that spectrum. So Focus Area 2, the future land use, as the judge said in 2020, was changed to industrial. And yes, on the Boone County side, it shows rural and rural residential. Focus Area 2, for the most part, is still zoned agriculture. So, when I explain the process of what that means, you'll know why that is significant. So Focus Area 2, majority of it still zoned agriculture, a portion of it, of course, zoned as industrial. The other thing I want to point out is we get a lot of questions about Boone County and their planning and Kent County and our planning, and why aren't we just matching what happens on either side of the county? We strive to do that, but and we try to minimize the negative impacts of either county on the other. But at the end of the day, each county kind of dictates its own policy. So if you really look at Boone all the way from the southern portion to the river north, a lot of it is actually land used in the future for industrial. They've got the interstate, they're looking at where they want their primary industries to locate. So from a planning standpoint, that makes sense. For us, that's not necessarily the case. We've got industrial, but then we've also got residential sort of smeared into the picture because of our location. The other thing I want to point out is we hear it loud and clear that we want to keep Southern Kent County rural. And this, to be honest, has been the message since the 90s. Since planning efforts began in the 90s in Southern Kent County, that point has been made more than clear. And that is reflected in our current policies today. So if you look at the map on the right, all that green that you see in the southern part of Kent County, all of that future land use is agriculture. There is no intention, there's been no discussion of changing any of that to anything but agriculture. Now, along with that, there has also always been discussions about where could we have industrial land in Kent County. And just about every planning document that you will see since the 90s references this area for industrial use. And there's been very specific intentional steps taken along the way to make that happen. So back to the question about how is manufacturing generally regulated, and almost 900 acres in Focus Area 1 has been zoned ECP since 2006. Is that the same as manufacturing? So in our zoning world, we generally see manufacturing listed as an industrial use. And traditionally, there are other uses permitted in an industrial zone, so you won't see a zoning district called a manufacturing zoning district. You'll traditionally see it as an industrial zoning district, and manufacturing is one of the uses that will be listed. But along with that, usually other uses are listed as well. Warehousing, research and development, there are other uses that are usually listed there as well. And they normally have additional requirements like setbacks and height and parking and lighting, all of those things that can impact development on the site as well as those that are around it. The one thing I want to clarify to Mr. Kroom's point earlier is that anytime we talk about industrial, the vision is always towards smokestacks. And we have heard that for decades. That is always the picture in people's mind is that of smokestacks. And to be honest, I was just asking our staff today, in the last 15 years, have we seen a proposal for a smokestack in any of our industrial zones? And the answer is no. We just, to Mr. Kroom's point earlier, that has just changed over time, and we just don't see those kinds of uses or applications for those uses to locate in Kent County. So again, back to 900 acres in Focus Area 1, zoned ECP since 2006. Is that the same as manufacturing? So slightly two different things. ECP is the zone, manufacturing is a use that is allowed within the ECP zone. Now you may say, okay, that's great. You've been saying that we should promote manufacturing, but you also allow warehousing in that. Where did that come from? So if you think about when that zoning ordinance was developed, that was 2006. Amazon was really not on any of our radars. We had no idea this boom was coming with logistics and how intense that was going to be. So should we go back and look at, is there a better way to find a balance between the two? Absolutely. We should go back and look at that. And manufacturing is going to need some level of warehousing to support it as well. So this is not we completely just remove warehousing from the picture. We just try to find a better balance between the two. The other thing I want to reiterate over and over and over again, the 2006 process to develop this ECP was a 1.5 year long process. So if anybody lived in the area at the time, hopefully they will remember our efforts on community engagement, which is the basic foundation of any planning that we do in Kent County. There was extensive community engagement. We brought it before the Planning Commission for approval. There was no, because of the extensive community engagement, there was no opposition to the zone change at the Planning Commission meeting, and then of course at the Fiscal Court meeting as well. And many of these documents can be found on our website at pdskc.org, or you can reach out to us and we're happy to share that as well. Okay, so the next question was, what does a typical process look like when an industry wants to locate here? And again, as I said before, For Focus Area 1, the process is going to be different versus Focus Area 2 because where these policies lie are just completely different. So let's just start with Focus Area 1. So this is the area south of Mayher, north of Walt Nicholson, county boundary to Bank Lake Road. Focus Area 1 is already zoned ECP, which is Eco Commerce Park. It is an industrial zone. It is already zoned industrial. It is already land use industrial. So today, we could get an application for an industrial development in that area, and so long as they meet all the requirements in the ECP zone, they will probably be approved as part of that process. Because again, we've set these regulations, these standards for the type of development that we will accept in that area, and so if somebody brings a proposal in that meets all of those requirements, they're going to be allowed to go there. Now, there's a lot of requirements within those regulations that they have to meet, but generally, if they can meet it, they move forward. So they will submit a permit application, our zoning department will review it. As long as it meets all the requirements, it'll be approved or it'll be denied. Focus Area 2, as I said, so this is the southern area, completely different ballgame. It is not zoned for the most part today for industrial. So in the portion that is zoned industrial, we're back to the process that we talked about in Focus Area 1. But for the portion that is land-used agriculture but not zoned industrial, there is an additional step that the applicant has to go through to get there. So let's just say that a property owner is approached to build industrial in Focus Area 2. They can do one of two things. They can say, go pound sand, or they can say, yes, let's kind of continue the conversation and let's see where we go with this. So the land use has been established there for industrial. They will have to initiate what we call a zoning map amendment, which means that they're going to try and get the land changed from agriculture to industrial. Now, this requires a public hearing process. So this is standard for any zone change process in Kent County. Anytime you're looking to change the zoning, there is a public hearing process involved. So it'll come to us, they'll submit an application, Planning Commission will organize a public hearing, they will listen to the testimony. Generally, we get lots of residents that come and share their opinions in favor or against. Planning Commission considers all of that, and then they will make a recommendation to the Fiscal Court. And then Fiscal Court can either accept that recommendation or they can choose to defer from the Planning Commission's recommendation. But the final decision about that falls with the Fiscal Court or the legislative body. And then the outcome is either approved or denied. Now, after they go through this process, they have to go back and go through that entire process for Focus Area 1 like we talked about. Submit an application, get a permit, make sure they meet all the requirements, and then they're approved. So two very different processes depending on which area an application comes in. How will traffic be regulated when manufacturing companies are approved? So I'm only going to talk about the ECP zone because that's the only one that's really zoned for industrial. There is a traffic study requirement within the ECP zone for any application that comes before us. So, and typically traffic studies will require information on how many trips are generated, where is this traffic going, how is it going to minimize the impacts on the surrounding areas. So all of that will be submitted and reviewed by a professional engineer. And then based on the traffic study, a widening, a turn lane, improved signage, there are all kinds of requirements that might come out of a traffic study. So they will be required to do one. They will be required to show where their traffic is going to go. And obviously, in this area, we want it directed towards the interstate. We don't want it coming on Bank Lake. We don't want it coming on Mayher Road. And to that front, we need to do a little bit more planning when it comes to that transportation network, because if we just wait and let it happen, it is going to be detrimental to our community. So we always continuously look at, okay, if this area is already zoned industrial, how are we getting the traffic from this area off our residential streets and onto the interstate where they probably want to be anyway? The other question, and Judge, you touched upon this earlier, if I do not want to sell my land, can zoning regulations force me to sell it? The simple answer to that is no. It really is no. It's your property. There is nothing in zoning that says this is going to be zoned industrial, and so you have to go ahead and sell it. There's just that it doesn't even exist. That right doesn't even exist within zoning to be able to do that. Now, you could say that, everything around me is zoned industrial. I just don't want to deal with it. I want to sell my land and move on. That is still your choice. But if you want to stay, if all the property owners want to stay, they don't sell, just because it is zoned industrial, it does not make it happen. And to be honest, ECP is a perfect example of that. That land has been zoned for industrial for 20 years. And we know there are plenty of landowners in that area that are still there today that were there 20 years ago. So it does not force you to sell your land just because it is zoned industrial. Will buffers to surrounding residential areas be required? Absolutely. This is a base requirement in any zoning ordinance where residential exists next to industrial. Now, we typically see about a 75 feet buffer, if you're 75, or a 50-foot buffer if you're next to residential or agriculture. It just depends on what the zoning ordinance states. There's additional landscaping requirements that companies have to meet in order to go next to residential. There's lighting requirements. That's usually a big topic of concern for folks. You have to put a certain type of fixture. You cannot have a certain brightness beyond your property line. There's all kinds of requirements when it comes to lighting and so on. So yes, there are plenty of buffer requirements when residential is located next to industrial. That was the gist of a majority of the questions that we got. I'm happy to answer any questions from the court.
The focus area, one, the area that's zoned industrial already, are the roads adequate that warehouse or manufacturing plant could be put in there now?
The simple answer is no. It is not. We know Wright, Graven are all very, very rural residential roadways, which is why we need to plan ahead before we get any application in to figure out how we're getting those companies from this area onto the interstate. And I think we do not want them on Mayher, we do not want them on Banklick. We want to find a way to get them as soon and as fast as possible to the interstate.
But right now, they're not adequate.
They are not.
And my experience as a state legislator was that it might take 8 to 10 years once you submit your plan for the roads to be developed. I mean, it's a long process because everybody in the state wants a road, and there's only so much money to go around. But anyway, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, can you speak to I don't know how to present the question, but the issue of industrial to the west in Focus Area 1 from Boone County, that the limitations that the county has to not allow something that's coming if the property kind of lays over two counties. I think you know what I'm trying to say there.
Yep.
The
So-
issues of being able to stop it or not.
Yep. So I think we all see the industrial development on the Boone side. Those of you that drive Mayher every day, actually those of you that live in Glenhurst see the industrial development right next door to you, and that is all in Boone County. So again, the portion in our county is zoned industrial. Shoreland, if you've ever been on Shoreland, dead ends right into our county. And so tomorrow, if an application comes in to extend Shoreland into Kenton County, we're looking at, hey, the land is already zoned industrial. And yes, we're going to ask questions like, where's your traffic going? How are you minimizing impact on the surrounding areas? We're going to ask all those questions. But that company, that industry has a basic right to locate there because that's what we've told them for years. For 20 years, we have said, this land is zoned industrial. It is going to be developed as industrial. And it's most likely coming from Boone County, given the access issues, that we don't have a roadway network that can support it going to any other area. It's going to have to go through Boone County. And Boone County, again, through their future land use map, has been very clear about those expectations for a very long time. I remember looking at it in 2006 when we were working on the ECP zone, and we looked at the entire area being land used as industrial, and we're thinking 20 years from now, how is this going to affect our area? And that was part of the conversation then as well.
Thanks. Questions? Okay. Thanks, Charmaine. Really
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to jump to Spencer, who is our county engineer and talking about infrastructure. Spencer, you got the infrastructure questions.
Thank you, Judge. So just wanted to say, part of my role here at Kenton County is the Director of Public Works. So we're responsible for maintaining Kenton County roadways. The other part is county engineer. I get to work with other of our partner agencies on more regional transportation related goals. Also work with some groups, recognize some familiar faces here in the crowd from the South Kenton County Citizens Group. We've worked together to identify several items throughout the county that could use improvements, and we've executed and advocated for several of those projects as well.
Spencer, you forgot to tell them your main job is fixing potholes.
That's the most important one, absolutely. We got plenty of them to fix. So, also, my comments are mainly going to be focused around Focus Area 1. This Focus Area 2, it's not part of our work plan at Public Works. As the judge said, that's decades down the road. We're more on Focus Area 1, so that's what my comments will be related to moving forward. So one of the first questions that we're going to address, several people made comments on this, and it's what type of improvements are going to be needed in Focus Area 1 to attract manufacturing companies. So really they can be broken down into two categories. We've talked a lot about our roadways and what would be appropriate to accommodate manufacturing and development, but also utilities as well. The utilities there are not currently sufficient to adequately provide the capacity that's required of manufacturing companies. For instance, for Duke Energy and Owen Electric, in the area we have is separated between the two different providers. The high-level estimates, it could be several hundred megawatts that are required from these companies, which would require substations of both of those companies to be reconstructed to provide the adequate capacity. The water and sewer, we have multiple million gallons of water that would need to be supplied and conveyed as wastewater from those facilities, which require a lot of advances to the current infrastructure. Gas is another one. We would need improved gas mains to provide the adequate capacity, and also expanding the communication networks. So, regarding the new access road, as Charmaine was saying, the goal would be to get vehicles to the interstate as quickly as possible and create less disruption for the residents. Currently, there's a lot of two-lane roads in the area. The judge had mentioned Banklick Road and having tractor trailers travel on that. That's an issue that we want to be prepared for and plan ahead for, to make sure that we're providing the adequate system that will handle those vehicles. Roads like that are state highways, if they're within a certain amount of distance in close proximity to the interstate, trucks have the right to use them, and there's not much we can do about it. They're protected by statute. We commonly get requests to put up no truck signs, but it's just a fact that if they're within a certain proximity to the interstate, they have to be allowed to use the state highways. And Focus Area 1 is in a unique situation where we have CSX Railroad to the eastern border and then Norfolk Southern to the west. So providing access by way of grade-separated crossings is important to those companies as well. Moving on to another common question that we had is, what are the timelines for these improvements? I feel like, we commonly hear that people are expecting to see something within a couple of years. The truth is that projects of this magnitude require a lot of time to adequately plan and design any type of network that would go through. We want to make sure that anything that's designed is, trying to creating as less of a disturbance as we're able to. So, for instance, I know 536 was brought up. Dr. Dowd, you mentioned that a new project could take 8 to 10 years to get in the plan. Well, even once it gets in the plan, for instance, the section of Kentucky 536 that is currently under construction from Kentucky 1303 to the east, it's been in the highway plan for over 2 decades now. And we're just seeing the construction start on that portion. So what impact would not planning for new development have on existing infrastructure? So to boil it down, it would overload the existing network. Utilities, based on the demands that I previously mentioned, there's not adequate capacity there now to handle that additional need. So you would have an overload on your utility network, as well as your transportation as well. We had talked about, previously the amount of trucks that would be expected, and making sure that they have the adequate capacity on our roadway networks to be able to effectively operate. The truth is, right now, on some of those roads, they're rural roads not designed to handle that type of traffic. So, not preparing for it could cause a strain on our residents. We want to plan ahead to make sure that we're providing a safe and effective network. So it's been brought up a couple of times, but the picture here is at the Richwood Road interchange with I-75. You can see that there's grade-separated crossings for the Norfolk Southern Railroad to the west of Focus Area 1, and Dixie Highway there. Richwood is, the I-75 is further in the background of the picture there. So that's an angle looking towards Boone County. And then now that there's a straight likely shot to the east that has some distribution already established. So this project was constructed as part of a group of projects that included both Mountain Zion interchange improvements and I-75, some improvements between Richwood and Mountain Zion on I-75. It was around $120 million for that project. And then one other item that the judge brought up earlier that I'd like to touch on, just based on my personal experience. I used to work for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet previously in my career, and regarding eminent domain, the cabinet uses that pretty much as the last option. Early on in design, when they're looking at different alignments to select, they try to do their best to make it as minimal of a disturbance as possible. So that's generally how projects are designed, and so condemnation is generally used as a last resort. With that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioners, any questions at all? Okay, great. Thanks, Spencer. I appreciate it very much. Okay, so we're going to jump into the public comment portion of the meeting this evening again. Appreciate those who waited to comment here. Couple of, just asking some ground rules. Number one, we're going to ask you guys to keep comments to 2 minutes. We will cut you off at that point, but just be respectful of the time limit so people can actually have a chance to get their comments made. As always, we just ask everybody to be respectful. The previous meetings have been that way, and we've really appreciated that. We aren't going to get into a back and forth banter between comments made or questions of the commissioners. I'm not going to comment, or if you say something that's incorrect or ask a question, we're not going to respond to those. That's not the model by which we're going to use tonight. We would ask you, if you have ever questions, as most people have done, just pick up the phone, email. We'll get any question addressed that people have, if it can be answered. But we're not going to get back into a back and forth this evening. We would ask you again to keep it to 2 minutes. If it's already been stated, if you just want to comment that, hey, I agree with this, please do that. Obviously, we appreciate the fact we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to make a comment, but just repeating the same thing over and over, again, does not benefit anybody. We get the point. If it's, you just refer to the, hey, I agree with what Bob said, or what have you. If you have, and you're with a couple, or if you're with a family and you want to allow for somebody to speak on behalf, that's also appreciated. But if you feel the need to speak individually, we're here as long as you need to feel comments. And as I said, I would just ask you not to make comments either booing or clapping or vice versa as we go through this evening. So would ask you to come to the mic, acknowledge where you live, just let us know. It's always appreciated. And we're going to start at the very top of the list. So Mrs. Shank on Eads Road. So if you'd like to come forward, please. And after Ms. Shank, we're going to go to, I think, Mr. Barnes. So Mr. Barnes wants to be ready, so.
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name is Rhonda Shank, Eads Road, and I'm here today to speak against the Site Readiness Initiative, not just as a long-term resident of Kenton County, but someone who values the farmland, heritage, and natural beauty that makes South Kenton County what it is. Let's be honest. This initiative isn't about readiness. It's about paving over farmland. Land that feeds us, sustains local families, protects our water, and preserves our identity and history. It's about creating revenue for the county. Once farmland is gone, it's gone for good. You don't unpour concrete. You don't unsprawl a subdivision, and you don't unbuild factories and warehouses that may never bring or put tax revenue into the county. What's the rush? What is this really for? Because I haven't heard or met a single farmer, a neighbor, or a small business owner who ask for this. I have met people who want broadband and better roads and support for family farms, but not bulldozers, and certainly not broken promises. Farming isn't just a lifestyle. It's an economic engine. It's food security. It's open space that keeps flooding down and keeps Kenton County from becoming just another suburb swallowed up by unchecked development. You say that you're planning for the future, but whose future is that exactly? Because it doesn't look like my future, my children's, or my grandchildren's, and it doesn't look like the future that most Kenton County residents are asking for. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with a quote from Robinson Crusoe. It's never too late to be wise. I would add, it's never too late to do the right thing. I urge you to stop the Site Readiness Initiative before we lose the very land that gives Kenton County its character and its future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barnes, and then Jamie Shaw wrote down, do you like to address the court, Jamie? Jamie Porter Shaw. Was that a yes, that you did want to address the court? Okay, now you'll be next. Mr. Barnes, welcome.
All right, hello. Thanks for letting me speak, Judge, Commission. Hey, my name's Dan Barnes, and I live on Graven Road in Focal Area 1. I'm not a farmer, and I do not have a farm, and I don't want to speak for any farmers. But I'm a homeowner of 6 beautiful manicured acres for the past 22 years. And I have beautiful trees, flowers, blackberries, gardens, creek, that birds, squirrels, raccoons, possums, deer, and red-tailed hawks can stop by and visit whenever they want. It's no coincidence we purchased this property in the late 90s at the same time this site initiative started. We wanted space and we wanted to keep the industrial parks out. But with the farm selling off to the south on Old Lexington Pike, empty warehouses are popping up over there, and it's speeding things up, and I think that's why you guys have dropped it to the 900 acres. Because they're already moving south on us here, or moving north on us, which means someone in our area has spoken to you about selling, or it was purchased by LLC speculatively, for this reason. But regardless, we're here now. And, I'm not a tree hugger, nor am I stupid, but that's debatable. But I agree that change is coming. It always has and it always will. I know that. We've been hearing talk of a new school for years, probably as long as this place, site initiative. SK was 4 years ago. Walt Nicholson Pike is already heading toward a future disaster with the amount of traffic on that. The downs of Nicholson plus this stuff, it's going to be a total mess there, not counting Independence roads with all the subdivisions that you put in there. So what I would like, my questions are, the updated map on the actual 900 acres. We've updated these maps, so I would like to see the updated 900 acres, where that goes, what we can expect in the next couple of years. I'll be meeting with the judge next Friday, so we'll be able to get a little of this. And I'm curious of how many homeowners and landowners are directly affected by this scaled down 900 acre version. And how many of these acres someone has already committed to sell or offered you this to bring you up to this point. We've already discussed that if we say we aren't going to sell, then, I don't know if you're going to get the roads or highway department to do your dirty work. We already talked about that, and he said that that's a last resort. To the lead, we talk about the good jobs I hate when we use the good jobs for the people of Kenton County, which is kind of like, because, I live in Kenton County, work 5 minutes away in Boone County, worked years in Cincinnati, so we're not really giving jobs to Kenton County people. It's, it's tax. Why don't you just say it? It's tax dollars. All right? And on that note, as far as that goes, again, Josh, Amazon now employs as many robots as people. So nobody can say for sure how many jobs AI will replace in this manufacturing and warehousing future.
Mr. Barnes, if you could go ahead and wrap up. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
I will see you next Friday, but anyway, I highly recommend everybody here to meet with the judge and talk one-on-one, anybody affected by it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. Ms. Shaw. And we'll have, let's see, Suzanne, invite you back up after.
I actually do have a prepared statement, but I'm not going to read it after all. I agree with most of the people on this side of the aisle, so I'll put that down at first. One repeated thing that I do have concerns about is all of this, the idea that we've been preparing for this for a really long time, and it takes a really long time to prepare, and this zoning change went through 20 years ago, and you're just now saying that's kind of the overall sort of consensus that at least myself and others like me, we feel that way. Without concerned citizens speaking up, we wouldn't have known. I've lived on Green Road since I was born. That's when my family bought that farm. All those years later, I bought a piece of property when I became an adult, and I've been there since '96. I have not one time, not once ever, had a survey or a question or how is this going to affect you? Guess what? Your road, you're the connector. See, Green Road's not on there. We're not in zone 1 or 2. We're at the end of each. So the green space at Green Road on Walton Nicholson end and at 25 end is within the proposal. Guess what connects that to the interstate? Green Road. And the people that live on Green Road have for the last 2 summers been inconvenienced with the road shut down, that we had to make a 20 to 25 minute on each commute around the world just to get over to Independence, right? With this is just finally fixing an error in the road. That's not really the true case, not when you study how all of these projects connect. And I feel like in a time when, we're like so divided and trust is at an all-time low, saying that you've done all these things to try to involve the community, or maybe even, I have also heard, it's not time to involve the community yet. We're just getting stuff in place. Well, see, all those years ago, it changed, right? 20 years ago, it changed. And now, as, I'm sorry, ma'am, I forgot your name, but as she explained, anybody can put an application in now, right? And as long as they meet the requirements, they're going to be granted that spot. That's why it matters. Sorry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Suzanne Leist. And next will be
Part 2.
Heather Grothouse, please, next.
I think everybody is pretty much aware that the survey and no other data from the residents for extending industrial land use beyond existing zones is available. And yes, South Kenton County Citizens Group did talk about it, and we're not disputing that. But the reality is that PDS at the time did not ensure, as this woman mentioned, a broad communication reaching all the affected residents that might have a stake in this land use change. And this left most of the rural residents totally unaware of the magnitude and the impact of the changes, as we're hearing. You mentioned a small percentage of acreage. Well, I'm just thinking about Focus Area 2. Yes, that's small, but guess who owns the majority of acreage in rural South Kenton? Everybody else, not the people in that, and that's what makes up a rural community. So, yes, you said individual and development company landowners have a property right to sell to industry. Okay, I got it. Individual property rights, it's a big part of our nation. But the SRI plans go well beyond property rights to prepare so that all that land can be used for industry. All this infrastructure is going to be using our taxpayer money, whether it's federal, state, or local, to pay private companies to construct roads, interstates, bridges, parking lots, buildings, and those are the ones that are going to benefit from it when they pave it over. It's not, and yes, it is 10 to 20 years, but we residents want to look out 10 to 20 years too, just like you are. And we want to ensure in 10 to 20 years that that's not the vision that we have. And where is the support for keeping it rural? Now, maybe there are ways to compromise on the details, but we haven't gotten to that point yet, nor do we hear that coming from the commission, that we would sit down in 2025 for the update and relook at what it means to protect and maintain a rural community. And that's what we're asking for. Yes, we are out here now. Yes, we are aware. Yes, we have opinions, but what are we going to do about it? That's what we're not hearing. We're hearing about the history, and that's all well and good, but like, you said, Sharmali, that's pre-Amazon. So you too have to think ahead 10 to 20 years. Those are robot jobs now, somebody mentioned. They too have to think about that. Again, we're at a place that we want to sit down and have input and not bring out all the history of all the stuff that's gone in the past. And that's what I'm asking you to do for the 2025 update. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Grothaus, and then, let's see, Mr. Grothaus, do you also want to make comment? Okay, you'll be up next.
Heather Grothaus, I live on Mayor Road. This meeting was not the Q&A that has been repeatedly requested. It was a performance where presenters spoke to what subjects the fiscal court wanted to spin. The commissioners will again have the last words. They will not have a 2-minute time limit, and they will not risk being questioned on the record by voters. I am confident not a single person who came here tonight in opposition of the SRI project was swayed the tiniest bit by the song and dance given by unelected officials whose career objectives are to sell out rural Kenton County to developers. The SRI scheme indeed did start to take earnest shape in August 2020. That was during the COVID lockdowns, when citizens were locked out of government buildings and most residents in the focus areas had no knowledge of, let alone input on, the plans being made. We were literally not on the mailing list and purposefully kept in the dark. For this reason and this reason alone, the SRI should be immediately and completely scrapped. This fiscal court vacillates between claiming the SRI is about getting ahead of a monster that's bearing down on us simple villagers in the South, and then trying to sell us all on how awesome the monster really is. We aren't buying it. We don't need or want growth and commercial sprawl across our farmland. No, you can't put your boat in our barn or your industrial runoff in our creek. Stop weaponizing government and nonprofit entities to force these things while hiding behind land use. There are already vacant sites in Kenton County whose communities need revitalization, not gentrification. How many of these sites could have been made more shovel-ready with the insane amount of taxpayers' dollars wasted on the SRI? I encourage all voters to look up the budget for the growth-focused nonprofits who are associated with the SRI. Hold developers and corporations environmentally responsible for the privilege of doing business in Kenton County. We are fed up with the unchecked sprawl and the arrogance of elected officials lining the pockets of developers, corporations, and pet nonprofits at our expense. I petition Kenton County Fiscal Court to immediately and fully terminate the Site Readiness Initiative.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Grothaus. And then next would be, let's see, we got Jesse Dalton.
Hello, my name is Tim Grothaus. I live on Mayor Road in Focus Area 1. I heard Mr. Knuckleman make a comment some time ago that we are not a democracy. This is very true, thanks to God. We are a constitutional republic. To use a quote from one of our founding fathers, James Madison, he said, "We may define a republic to be a government which derives all its powers directly or indirectly from the great body of the people, and is administered by persons holding their offices during pleasure," that means at the pleasure of the people, "for a limited time or during good behavior." We hear a lot on this SRI from people that we didn't elect. Some don't even work for Kenton County. They may not even live in Kenton County, telling Kenton County what it needs. I think the citizens of Kenton County know what is best for us. Why don't these people work for Kenton County? Well, probably because they couldn't make nearly as much money. They have zero accountability to the people, yet they can still act as an extension of the county government at the behest of our elected officials and work with the big businesses for big money. Their bottom line is the same as any business. It's all about the money. Thomas Jefferson said, "The policy of American government is to leave its citizens free, neither restraining them nor aiding them in their pursuits." Yet Kent County is ready to aid the big businesses by building roads and infrastructure and giving them tax breaks while restraining the citizens of rural Kenton County with land use, zoning, and most likely more taxes. Something seems wrong there. My final quote is from Ronald Reagan on the economic crisis of the 80s when he wisely said, "Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem." If we are in such an economic crisis, if so many businesses are knocking on Kenton County's door, let the businesses build the roads and the infrastructure. If it's so awesome, let them invest their money. If they own the land and want to foot the bill for all the roads and infrastructure, that's absolutely their right to do so. But until then, every single one of us has the right to say no, time and time again. We don't want it. Quit spending our tax money, either county, state, or federal funds, on things we don't want. This is going to be in our backyards, not yours. Finally, you said you were tabling Focus Area 2 for now. That was a divide and conquer move if I've ever seen one. Not as many people in Focus Area 1. Not so many people to complain and make noise. Once you get it moving in Focus Area 1, there's no stopping the invasion of Focus Area 2. This SRI affects a lot more than the areas you have outlined. It's all connected, and it all has to do with money and not people. And by the way, this is not the meeting that we requested or I requested. 5:30 on a Tuesday, when most people haven't even gotten home from work yet. I don't know where the Q&A session is. We offered to get a moderator, a venue, security, anything you needed to make it happen. We want some real answers that our government obviously isn't willing to give. Thank you.
Okay, let's see, Mr. Dalton, or Jesse Dalton?
I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, so just bear with me. I took a few notes. I felt compelled that I need to address a couple of things.
Sure.
The fiscal court tonight, you've used some verbiage that said this SRI is just studies, ideals, discussions. What this time, you also said there's no action being taken. I think it's prudent to say that this audience wants to stop the train before it leaves the station. I'm respectfully asking the fiscal court, what does it take to get the point across that the affected residents in Focus Area 1 and 2 do not want the SRI? Is there a target number of residents that you want to oppose it? My other question is, what does it take? Does it take Election Day? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's see, Ms. Fry, Julie Fry? And then, well, next will be, let's see, Molly Miller, please.
Hi, my name's Julie Fry. I'm from Graven Road. I agree pretty much with everything everybody said. And here is the petition and all the names on the petition that I think Mr. Neighbor thought there were only like 200 people opposed. So I'll leave this here for you because I think it was given to you at Simon Kenton.
Sure, yeah, could you have a copy of?
Way to you.
Thank you.
And as I flip through, those are from my neighbor initiated the petition, and there are some that aren't eligible. They're from Ohio and different things. I would say there's probably 300 or 400 that possibly aren't eligible. But what's your name? Spencer. Spencer was talking about the road projects in 1303, 338, Richwood, and all these things. Well, those are just sandwiching what your phase one is. All of this has been set up. You said it started 20 years ago, right? For 1303 and all. So all of the infrastructure that's being built up right now is to sandwich the area or to connect to the area that SRI is trying to take over. And obviously, we weren't notified with the survey as many others weren't. And so I think the transparency that you try to exude doesn't exist. And the fact that the same things are being said over and over. Yes, by us, but by you, and we keep saying the same things over because you're not saying anything different. You're not truly answering the questions that everybody has. And we thought this was going to be a question and answer, right, between us and you, not you and them, right? So I think the transparency and the honesty is lacking on your parts.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, we have, we're Mr., let's see, do we Molly Miller? Yep. And then next we'll do Bill Kobe, or Bill Code, I'm sorry. Okay, Molly?
Hi, Molly Miller. I live on Parker's Grove. It's not in Focus Area 1 or Focus Area 2, but they both would impact me where I am. So I agree with everybody else on this side of the room. And I know you talk about coming to the public hearings, and not the public hearings, but you come out to Pioneer. And there was a session in 2024 where there were really nice people there. I don't know who they were with, but we had all these billboards, and we were supposed to say whether or not we wanted these things to come out this way. One was like bike paths and parks and affordable housing, and it was all very confusing. I stayed for a whole extra hour because I kept saying, well, we don't want any of this. We don't want any of this. We have fields. We have, like, it wouldn't be very safe to ride a bike out in Pioneer. So it was very confusing. And what I realized at the end, somebody said, well, all of this is coming. So where it's just very confusing when you do things like that. It should be, you should tell all the parts to the puzzle and explain we've already did these changes, because we didn't all know that land use changed in 2020. So that's what the 2024 was all about, which going there, I didn't know how to answer those questions because we didn't have any insight to it. So please stop the SRI and let Southern Kenton County and Focus Area 1 and Focus Area 2 be the way it's always been. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sherry Goodridge, would you like to address the court? Or okay. Next we have John Robbins. And after John, we will go to Mr. Ben Bach. So if Mr. Bach wants to be ready, that'd be great.
I'm John Robbins, and I live at 3519 Moffett Road since 1997. Today, and I follow, somebody else said they weren't a farmer. I also am not a farmer, but my 42 years of designing homes and additions, mostly in rural areas, has me listening to people. And so we had all these presentations, and as Suzanne pointed out, none of them were about farming or agriculture. And yet we're talking about farming and agriculture. And so I went out on the internet today. I had a couple hours that I could do this, and I found in the environmental report of the Kenton County 2024 Comprehensive Plan, I know you can't see this, but this is on the internet. It's published by Kenton County, and it says, it has a map of Kenton County, and the left or west side of the map is mostly yellow. And what does that say? It says farmland of statewide importance. Kenton County, this is quoted from the environmental report. Kenton County consists of some soils which are considered prime farmland soils, or farmland of statewide importance, as shown in Figure 4. Prime farmland is land which consists of soil that has the best combination of physical and chemical characteristics for the production of crops. It has the soil quality, growing season, and moisture supply needed to produce sustained high yields of crops when treated and managed, including water management according to current farming methods. Areas of Kenton County listed as farmland of statewide importance, which is almost all the area we're talking about, both of the focus areas, indicates land other than prime farmland, which has good combination of physical and chemical characteristics for the production of crops. So we're talking about, I mean, this is a county document. I didn't create it, but just as I would be working for a customer, I do research, and this is what I find. This is farmland. So why would we want to do something besides farmland in the farmland, and it's identified as such in the 2024 Comprehensive Plan. Now, I'm also, I don't know how many people know this, but I am the chair of the Northern Kentucky Sierra Club, which covers 12 counties. And Sierra Club also has a land use policy. It says, those seeking to convert agricultural land to other uses, whether or not it is in current active production, should bear the burden of proving that the proposed new use is more important to the current and future public welfare, and that no other location is feasible that would avoid the loss of agricultural land.
Mr. Robbins, if you could wrap up.
So I think those 2 points represent the feelings of the people in the South Kenton district that are trying to preserve the farmland. And I think the county, by its own documents, agrees with that position. And I do documents all the time, and I like to see them followed.
Great, thanks, John. Okay, Mr. Bach. And next would be Jackson Grodehouse, if you'd like to address the court. So, good evening.
Evening, court, neighbors. My name is Benjamin Bach. I'm from Meadow Glen, Independence. As an infrastructure engineer, I appreciate long view planning and foundational design details. It's rarely glamorous nor appreciated, but it will be readily used by those it was planned for, and especially if it was well done by those who it wasn't designed for. That's why it's important to have these conversations now. Decisions that happen now are going to impact us long into the future, just as what was eloquently stated by our presenters this evening. I agree with Mr. Kroom that we do all benefit from economic development, prosperity for all. But these concerns today by my neighbors center on the concerns that others' prosperity is coming at our expense. Schmiel spoke of buffer areas, and Beth mentioned nice trees planted around an asphalt trail around a building. An asphalt trail and 10 trees and a 75-foot piece of yard don't replace the ecological impact of loss of woodland and fields, the flora and the fauna, do not protect the wider farms and their lands and the waterways from leaks and damages that can and most likely will occur. For claims of no development that will occur, well, see the 200-acre farm that was purchased by Duro Development by the top of Piner Hill. Government should be, as Lincoln said, of, by, and for the people. If honest pursuit of community prosperity was being sought, the proposals found in the SRI would be looking very different.
Thank you very much. Let's see, we have Ms. Jackson Grodehouse. You want to address the court? And then next we will be, if Janice Darnell would like to address the maybe on there. So
Good evening,
yes? Is that a yes? Okay, he'll be next.
Good evening, Mr. Knockelman, commissioners, and other members of the commission. My name is Jackson Grodehouse. I live on Mare Road. I'm an engineering student in Kentucky Colonel, plus I have become of age to vote. Before I open, I would like to agree with my parents. This is not a good time for a meeting. Even I just got off work, nor is it the meeting we were promised. I've lived in this area all my life. Since I've been little, I've helped raise chickens, grown my own food, and I still remember when Southern Kenton County was focused on being a rural community. Not anymore. Over the past few years, there has been nothing but more. There are always new stores, new subdivisions, new factory buildings being built, which attracts more and more people. The roads get worse every year with construction and traffic, making my commute to work longer and more dangerous as people not from here careen around corners, cutting into the other lane, and abandoning all common road sense. Why last week I was driving to work with my sister in the car, and a truck going 60 around a tight corner nearly slammed head-on into us. This didn't used to be the case. Driving around here was pleasant and safe, not so much anymore. I miss the days when I could ride down the roads and look at the farms, the fields, and see the stars. The authentic Kentucky experience, and you can't get that anymore. It's been terribly sad for me to watch my hometown and the surrounding area crumble into an industrial nightmare, and destroying what's left of the locality that still remembers what this place used to be like is not going to make you any friends, as I'm sure you found out. Halt this maddening expansion that destroys homes and communities and makes everyone worse off for it. We are sick of the when, not if, that we saw in tonight's presentations. Me and the people here with me today demand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice Darnell. And then next, if Dave Dalton, if you'd like to address the court, will be next.
Janice Darnell, Pinot Court. I believe residents have or will cover most of what I want to say, so I'm going to speak in snippets on 3 separate topics tonight. Number 1, the future of manufacturing. 2, buffers, quality of life. And 3, community engagement. First, manufacturing. The World Economic Forum states that as AI integrates more and more, manufacturing is set for a disruption on the scale of the dawn of automation in the 1950s. The dawn of automation. Can we forecast job demand? Not accurately. So maybe hit the brakes on a project that you've been full steam on since before 2020 and reassess. 2, buffers, quality of life. There was a comment tonight that's been made before, which is it doesn't make sense to convert the subdivisions to industrial development. Don't worry. Chris, you've said this to try to comfort homeowners. As a homeowner in a subdivision, this does not comfort me. It makes me feel 100 times worse. Because trust me, it makes even less sense to surround the subdivisions with industrial development and leave the residents behind it or by it. I have a manufacturer behind my house. There is noise pollution, a huge foghorn sound that happened for about a year. There is light pollution. There is traffic. There are trucks. We had to buy blinds in all of our rooms. Then we had to buy blackout curtains. There's only so much you can do with the lay of the land, the valleys. Trees aren't that high, and if they are, we learned after we moved in what the back of the factory looked like in the winter. I won't argue that manufacturers can make their landscaping beautiful, but I will point out that R.A. Jones, who had been there since the 1960s, only recently working around to the beautification with the walking trails. That's 80 years. Last but not least, community engagement. I read through the September 2006 South Bank Lake small area study that was addressed in the zoning conversation, and what the Commission's own ECP following that community engagement did not align with the 2006 responses, which, by the way, included only 93 participants in the survey. 93, and we've had more than that speak out over the last 6 months. In the survey, when asked what type of community the residents desire, 73 people said rural, 9 said compatible businesses, and 11 voted for self-sufficiency. When asked what their concerns were, they answered loss of farmland and more traffic. When asked what they liked most about the area, Focus Area 1, it was farmland, open space, and peacefulness. So can you really call it engagement if you survey, invite the community to talk, and then disregard everything that's been said to move forward with the plans anyway? Whatever you call it, it sums up how I feel we're engaging today. So how do we revise? How do we change direction? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we have next Dave, let's see, did I say Dave Dalton? Sorry, Mr. Dalton?
Keep speaking of all these great paying jobs and everything. UPS is laying off 20,000 people because of automation. UPS can do it with packages going to multiple states, everything, and you're expecting these jobs to come in and not have automation? So what are we gaining? They're laying off 20,000. They're buying them out, 20,000. Out of 177 years they've been in business, they've never did that before, never. And you think you're gonna bring them in here and everybody's gonna stay? No, it's gonna be a robot that does it. Both my sons are engineers. Guess what their job is? Automation, to cut out people. That is their job, and they are busy 24/7. They talked about Amazon. One of my sons knows about that Amazon stuff. It's all automation. If you can read a zip code and send it up a conveyor belt and have a guy load it in the back of a truck, where's these jobs coming from? UPS can do it. Anybody you say can do it.
Thank you. Let's see, Jesse Dalton, would you like to address the court also? Is that? Oh, I apologize, jumping back. Okay. Let's see, we have to go to Patty Davidson. Patty?
But I will say, I agree with all these people. We've got some great people here tonight.
Okay.
I agree totally with them.
Thank you. Let's see, we have Patty, is it Conover? Yeah. Would you like to address the court?
Well, I was here for another, and they canceled it.
Okay.
We didn't know till we got here.
Okay, well, thank you for being here regardless. Next time we'll cover that with you. Thank you so much for bearing with us. Let's see, Joan Martin, same thing there? Same? Okay. Got it.
But I do, these two people know what you're talking about.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you're here, by the way. Let's see, we have also Jesse Brewer.
Good evening, all. I appreciate it. My name's Jesse Brewer, and I live in Villa Hills. I'm also running for the U.S. House of Representatives, covering District 4, which, of course, my constituents are affected by this. Many of them have asked me to be here tonight because of the optics of the timing, so that they couldn't leave work to be here. Again, keyword optics, take that how you wish. Since this is not a Q&A as intended, I'll read my questions, and I guess you and I will have to have a chat one day when we can actually address them. With that being said, what kind of tax breaks will they receive as an incentive for coming here? American Racing over in Gallatin County, which is where I'm from specifically originally, the county gave great tax breaks to have American Racing come in town, and then American Racing left less than a decade later, absorbed all the tax breaks, and we left with a large building and empty pockets. The next question would be, what will we do to get the green space back that we will lose? We understand that we need to move forward with buildings, but if we're going to lose the farms and the green space, how are we going to get that back after it's completely gone? Are we going to take the existing warehouses that are no longer used and transfer those back into parks? Are we going to use the tops of the buildings with trees and grass and wildflowers? Jobs are great. As a potential, hopefully soon-to-be politician, I love jobs. I've also been into the point where you don't have a job. It's not a good spot to be, right? With that being said, what kind of jobs are we bringing? We say manufacturing, but are they union jobs? Are they jobs that have pensions, or are they just another job to go and make your 15, 20, 25, 30, I heard 80,000 a year. In 20 years, will $80,000 be the number? What kind of perks are we looking to give? How are we going to attract people from Boone County or Indiana or Ohio to come and spend their make their money here? Our taxes will not decrease once the manufacturing moves in. What is it for the residents that they can actually get out of this? They'll cover the taxes for their roads to maintain the salt on the roads, but they will not decrease our taxes. And if somebody wants to tell me otherwise, I'd be more than happy to see evidence if we have it. If enough of the residents sign a petition and we don't have eminent domain, because there seems to be a disconnect here, if enough of the residents that live in Zone 1 and 2 sign the petition that they will not sell, will this go away? I think that's a full stop question. Because we're hearing, yes, it'll go away, we won't use eminent domain, and then we're hearing it's a last resort, it's a possibility. So residents sitting behind me want to know, how can they get out of this as an option? So with that being said, thank you all for being here. Thank you, appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, we have, is it Shelley from, is it, oh, you're on Graven, I'm sorry, Shelley on Graven? Is it, how do you print? Shelley Poser? Ponder? Okay. Pardon? Okay. We have, we'll come back and, yeah, I think she left, but we're, let's see, we have, okay, a couple more. So Kimberly Code, would like to address the court? Okay. Okay. And then after, let's see, I think we're getting down to one or two, so.
Good evening. I stand before you today not as just as a concerned citizen, but as someone who's read the data. I'm deeply troubled by the disconnect between the promises of the Site Readiness Initiative and the actual workforce realities in Northern Kentucky. Let's be clear. We do not have the people to support the kind of industrial growth this initiative envisions. The numbers make that painfully obvious. A 2024 report funded by BNKY, Population and Labor Force Trends and Future Projections, looked at workforce trends through 2050 for our region. This includes Kenton, Boone, and Campbell. Here's what it found. Under the most realistic projection, our labor force is expected to grow by just 8,400 people over the next 30 years. That's fewer than 300 new workers a year across all 3 counties. That's nowhere near enough to meet the current demands, much less fill new jobs on speculative industrial sites. That's the optimistic scenario. A more pessimistic one from the study predicts we'll actually lose 18,000 workers. Why is this a problem? Demographics. By 2050, 1 in 4 Northern Kentuckians will be over 65. The working age population is going to shrink from 65% to 59%. That means fewer workers and more strain on our services. Our labor force is stagnant, shrinking, our population is aging, our net migration is weak, and there's no workforce plan tied to the SRI. No investment in housing, childcare, education, or transit. This initiative is based on the idea of if you build it, they'll come. This isn't a movie. If you don't have people, you don't have workers. Without workers, you don't have jobs. Just empty buildings and broken promises. Northern Kentucky doesn't need more shovel-ready land. We need people-ready communities. So if you want real prosperity, invest in what drives it. Schools, housing, transportation, childcare, places people want to live. Finally, I want to say this again for the 4th time. The site readiness website still includes a false claim that the South Kenton Citizens Group survey showed support for manufacturing in 2016. That's simply untrue, and I'm once again asking for that to be corrected on the website. Kenton County has no business fast-tracking speculative development at the expense of its people, especially when the data is screaming stop.
Thank you very much. And let's see, we're going to come back to you, Matthew, for your comments if you'd like to make additional comments. You get another couple, 2.5 minutes, or maybe even 2 minutes, 45 seconds.
Thank you. So we've heard a lot tonight about eminent domain, that the county's not going to use eminent domain. Yet it's been 165 days since residents in this room began calling on this court to adopt a resolution stating unequivocally that Kenton County opposes any and all eminent domain action related to the Site Readiness Initiative, and that the county will not in any way assist, aid, or cooperate with such a taking. Commissioner Nienaber's correct. The court speaks through its minutes, but it also speaks through its actions. The court's inaction on this request is being heard loud and clear. This fiscal court supports the use of eminent domain to accomplish the goals of the Site Readiness Initiative and will happily sit by as it watches other entities do its dirty work. We've also heard a lot about people having short-term memory loss, people not realizing what their previous positions were. Let's talk about an instance of that. At Pioneer on February 4th, the judge executive says it would be easier to do nothing, and that's an option. Let me be clear, that's an option. Yet on March 10th, in his letter to the residents, it reads, "A comment heard frequently at both meetings was do nothing. I want to be clear, do nothing is not an option." What changed? What new information did you learn in those 34 days that caused you to do a complete 180? What's your position now? Finally, on June 10th, at a fiscal court meeting, Commissioner Nienaber said, "When I read the newspaper article saying Kenton County is running out of industrial property, I read that personally and I thought, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." I agree, it is. That headline, which ran in Link, was based on a direct quote from Josh Weiss while presenting to the court. Weiss said, quote, "Kenton County industrial land is on a trajectory to be depleted." Weiss then indicated that the SRI is designed to curb that trajectory. 2 weeks later, the court unanimously adopted Resolution 2426, formally endorsing the Site Readiness Initiative. So my questions for Commissioner Nienaber. Do you wish that you would have voted against the resolution, seeing as it endorsed a project that is based on what you described as the dumbest thing you've ever heard? I'll close with this. It was President Reagan who told us that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." You've come to Southern Kenton County, said you're from the government, and you're here to help. The people of Southern Kenton County are thoroughly terrified. They're not backing down, and Election Day is coming.
Okay, thank you very much. So what we're going to do is allow for the any commissioner comments if you'd like to make those. If there's, we'll just start with you, Commissioner Sewell, if you'd any comment.
Speaking. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay. Sometimes we have to be very close.
has urged numerous times, please, I think we're going to be handing out a document tonight that contains all of our phone numbers, our email addresses. Feel free to reach out to us. I have heard from 2 people by telephone out of all the folks that live in South County about this issue. And I would appreciate any questions that we have not answered here this evening being asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Drow?
I've heard from a lot of people, but my observation this evening would be, number one, that there certainly were a lot of good points made, and I would not want any manufacturing or storage facility close to my house. And but on the other hand, I don't want. I'd like to see some kind of plan development where we have manufacturing developed instead of just distribution centers. So it's kind of a delicate balance between the two. I know this is a serious meeting, and but they had a little levity to it. I hope to be in heaven by the time they make a decision on this, because it will not happen. I would bet almost anything that it would be an 8 to 10 year period before anything happened with this. So I don't even think a lot of the people sitting up here will be part of any decision. But and I understand your concern about the rural part of it, and I understand if I had a farm that I'd like to protect it, and I think all of us understand that. But we have to create a delicate balance, and I'm not prepared one way or the other to vote on this because it's not an imminent issue. To me, it's not an issue right now. Now, maybe in the future, I don't think it will be in my future, but so that's my comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Niebuhr.
Just a couple comments. I do appreciate everybody coming here. Excuse me. I have been the one saying that we speak through our minutes. It's a proper venue, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate people coming here. I mean, took a lot of notes. The reality is this SRI, from our perspective, and I've been doing this a very long time, and I was amazed at how little the county does on the zoning side when I first got here, okay? In the city of Fort Wright, when I was the mayor and on city council, we dealt with zoning all the time because people were constantly buying and selling properties and bringing businesses in and out of Fort Wright. Like I've said, 65% of the revenue in the city of Fort Wright when I was the mayor was generated by businesses. And every bit of that has zoning, okay? I can tell you, you do not want to react to zoning. The 4 of us, if we do nothing, are still gonna have to vote when somebody buys a 200-acre farm. And you do not want us to vote on that without doing what we're doing right now, which is educating ourselves on the entire process, the area, the opportunities, the challenges. That's all we're doing, is when we do have to actually raise our hand because somebody has physically sold their property, and we're talking to people who will sell large parcels of property. And they're gonna come under that picture that I've always asked to put up there. They're gonna come under there. I'm not looking for anybody's property. I think you guys are all great people. I love it, and if you never sell, fine. But don't mistake this. This isn't about coming after you. This is being prepared when 4 people have to raise their hand on a zoning issue, and you want us to be educated, okay? You want us to be educated. And it doesn't, I'm hearing, you're not listening to us. We are listening to you. And we're also people who, just a real quick, 295 unique people have come to these meetings, and I appreciate every one of them. Above and beyond that, we're reaching out trying to get more information from other people. And it's simply to be able to have an educated perspective when somebody does ask us for what really matters, and that means to vote on zone changes or whatever that matters. That's it. I have no intention of taking anything from anybody, but I also don't intend to be responsible. The last thing we do want is 20-some thousand jobs leaving anywhere, and that's whatever. So if I didn't know what the heck they were talking about when they were talking about advanced manufacturing when we first started this. I didn't know. You don't want me not to know, okay? I mean, I came from a distribution background. At one point, I ran the distribution center for Redken Laboratories, and New Buffington was manufacturing shampoos. It's now L'Oreal USA, right? And the higher paying jobs were on that end of the deal at L'Oreal and New Buffington than they were when we were out on South Park in Hebron, okay? And there was far less truck traffic that came and went out of there than came in and out of the facility that I ran, all right? I'm not looking to make enemies or whatever, but in this business we do, okay? And it's never intended. It's just a byproduct of what we have to do. So I just ask that you bear with us, be patient on the process, and understand all we want to do is be able, that's why we're here, to represent Kenton County, and you want us to be educated about it. And I appreciate everybody's time and respect, and this process will go on. I'm not running again, so don't worry about not electing me. But when I'm gone, they're going to be talking about this for a long time after I'm gone. I promise you that. And that's all I got to say. And I appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'd just like to add something else. That the last young man that talked said something about eminent domain. I'll take an oath of office. I'll swear, under oath that I will never ever vote for eminent domain. And I don't know what he's talking about, because you said we took a vote in 2024 to approve a site readiness plan. I don't remember taking that vote, but anyway, okay. I'll take that oath from anybody if they'd like to.
Thank you, John. So a couple of quick notes. Yeah, definitely thank you for coming. Great insight, a lot of great questions. Some things that were stated that probably I would disagree with, some things I agree with. But moving on to a couple of notes, one of which we continue to meet with property owners, and a number of you alluded to that. We do invite, because it's amazing how many people would just want to make and are allowed to make comments in private. That's okay. And they're also allowed to make them in public. We allow for both, and we appreciate both. We just ask for people to be, factual and be honest, and offer their insight. There is no planned action. There is no planned zoning change. There is no planned effort other than what we've talked about. And this court, by the way, and what you're referring to, Commissioner, I think was Josh Weiss's proposal that we are going to be doing this effort of basically doing the homework, talking about both acknowledging the need for sites, how it gets accomplished, if it's going to happen, where would it likely happen, and as we alluded to, that we talked about this more than 5 years ago, but even garnering community involvement. And to that note, I would encourage is that as time moves on, again, is that as committees are developed, road committees, zoning committees, social committees, and unincorporated, offer to be a part of that. I see a number of faces in here who have put a lot of hours in, and they do it with a small group. And not for lack of asking for help, but they ask, and they deserve to get that support from their neighbors to do that kind of stuff. It's tougher with the geography that we have in unincorporated, but that's reality, and I would encourage people to be involved. And it's also the point that this is going to be a long-term effort. I will also tell you, I would never support, as a county official, to have eminent domain for private property, period. It just is not going to happen, would not happen, and I'm not going to support that. I don't think any of us would. The idea of road investment is something that I'm always going to encourage. I'm going to fight in Frankfurt to bring dollars back to this region every day, and I won't apologize for it, because we put a lot of money in Frankfurt, and I'd love to see our continued investment of Frankfurt dollars back up here, whether it be just replacing a road, repairing it, and adding new. It's going to happen. So I would definitely always continue to do that. And to that end, by the way, my family's been in Kenton County since about 1848. We had one of my great-grandpa's brothers had farmland in what is now Fort Wright. A different side of the family, not my side of the family, but it was there. There's houses there today that were because they decided to have a little farm and sold it to someone to put some residential in. There's other places in this community that someone would love to build a business in, but That's the great American way, where someone can have property, decide to sit on it forever, or decide to invest in it and allow someone to invest in it to grow a business. Or another person who decides to build homes so that we all can grow our families and grow our community. So all of those in between, plus the retail, that's just a model that you have to figure out where that goes. It all comes down to balance. It comes down to us doing our homework to be ready for the future and make sure that we can do the best thing possible. We're always open for the phone calls. We're open for the meetings. We've got lots of them coming forward. It is the purpose to share as much information as possible and get answers out there with a website and emails, et cetera. And one last note, and I'm not going to end on the bad note, which is I think the evil of the world seems to be social media. But just be careful of what you're reading and also what you're posting. That because of those individuals we all have responsibilities for what we say. We're always not correct. We might make a mistake sometimes, and I don't think it's ever intentional. But we sometimes, I would encourage everybody just to be kind, be professional, and understand that there's probably a different opinion that we all need to be listening to and do not always agree with, but we're always, I think this court, I will tell you, does care. We love Kenton County. We love all of Kenton County. And the reason why we take these challenging topics on is because we want to look out to the future and do the best for our neighbors, regardless of whether or not we're here or not. We hope to make the right call every day. So with that, I say thanks everybody for the meeting. We're always here available. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.